The pen hovered just above the signature line. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan boardroom, reflecting off polished marble floors and a 12-foot glass table. Billion-dollar executives sat in perfect silence. Expensive watches ticked. Lawyers adjusted their ties. Investors held their breath. In less than 10 seconds, billionaire Ethan Caldwell would sign the largest merger in his company's history, a deal worth nearly $12 billion. Then the heavy doors burst open. A small boy, no older than 10, stumbled inside, his face pale, his breathing uneven. His voice cracked as he shouted across the room. "Daddy, don't sign that." Time stopped. Pens froze. Lawyers stared at each other. Executives looked from the child to Ethan, unable to understand what they had just heard. Ethan slowly lifted his eyes. He knew the boy. It was Noah. The quiet son of the woman who cleaned his mansion. But why had he called him Daddy? And how could one frightened child possibly know something that none of the world's most powerful businessmen had seen coming? Before we uncover the answer, if you enjoy emotional stories filled with suspense, hope, and unforgettable twists, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's discover why one little sentence changed everything. Ethan Caldwell had everything money could buy. Private jets. Luxury penthouses. Vacation homes on 3 continents. Magazine covers called him America's youngest self-made billionaire. But every evening, after the meetings ended and the cameras disappeared, he returned to a mansion that echoed with silence. His wife, Claire, had died 8 years earlier after complications during childbirth. Their baby hadn't survived either. Since then, Ethan buried himself in work. Employees respected him. Investors admired him. But no one truly knew him. The only sound that regularly filled his home came every Saturday morning when Maria Torres arrived to clean the house. Maria never asked for favors. She never complained. She quietly polished floors, organized bookshelves, watered Claire's favorite roses, and disappeared before sunset. Most weekends she brought her son, Noah. Noah spent hours sitting quietly in the mansion's enormous library. Instead of playing video games, he read biographies of inventors, entrepreneurs, and scientists. One afternoon Ethan walked in unexpectedly. "What are you reading?" he asked. Noah smiled shyly. "The History of American Railroads." Ethan laughed. "Most adults wouldn't choose that." "I like understanding how big things get built," Noah answered. That simple reply stayed with Ethan. Over the following months, their conversations became longer. Sometimes Ethan explained business concepts using chess pieces. Sometimes Noah solved logic puzzles faster than seasoned executives. The staff noticed something unusual. The billionaire smiled more. For the first time in years. Maria noticed too. She often found Ethan and Noah sitting beside the fireplace discussing dreams instead of profits. One evening Noah quietly asked Ethan, "Do you ever get lonely?" The question hit harder than any boardroom negotiation. After a long silence Ethan answered honestly. "Every day." Noah nodded. "So do I." Neither said another word. They didn't need to. Months passed. Meanwhile another story unfolded inside Caldwell Industries. Richard Hawthorne, Ethan's longtime chief financial officer, had become the architect of an enormous merger with Titan Global Holdings. According to Richard, the merger would double profits within 5 years. Wall Street loved the proposal. Financial news channels praised Ethan's bold leadership. Only one person remained strangely uneasy. Noah. Whenever Ethan discussed the merger over dinner, Noah quietly listened. One afternoon he noticed Richard leaving confidential files open on Ethan's home office desk after a strategy meeting. Noah wasn't snooping. He simply came to return a book Ethan had lent him. But something caught his attention. A diagram. Several companies connected through complicated ownership structures. One name appeared again and again. Black Ridge Capital. Curious, Noah remembered it. Back at his public library, he searched through newspaper archives and business databases available to students. Hours turned into days. Patterns emerged. Every company connected to Black Ridge eventually collapsed after mergers. Employees lost pensions. Founders lost control. Assets quietly disappeared overseas. Noah couldn't believe it. Maybe it was coincidence. Then he discovered something else. Richard Hawthorne had secretly served on the advisory board of one of those companies years earlier. The information wasn't obvious. It was buried inside an old nonprofit filing. Noah printed everything. He wanted to tell Ethan immediately. But before he could, Maria fell seriously ill with pneumonia. Hospital visits replaced library visits. By the time she recovered, merger day had arrived. That morning Noah rushed to Ethan's mansion carrying a folder filled with documents. The housekeeper informed him Ethan had already left for the board meeting. Noah's heart sank. He looked at the clock. There was still one chance. He borrowed the gardener's bicycle. Pedaled through Manhattan traffic. Nearly got hit crossing an intersection. Reached the headquarters drenched in sweat. Security refused to let him upstairs. "I have to see Mr. Caldwell." "Appointment?" "No." "Sorry." Then one receptionist recognized him. The cleaning lady's son. She remembered Ethan speaking warmly about Noah several times. Against protocol, she hesitated. That hesitation changed everything. The elevator doors opened. Noah sprinted down the hallway. And burst into the boardroom. "Daddy, don't sign that." The room remained frozen. Richard Hawthorne stood first. "This is outrageous. Remove him immediately." But Ethan held up his hand. "No." His eyes never left Noah. "Why did you call me that?" Noah's lips trembled. "I'll explain, but please don't sign." Richard slammed his folder shut. "Ethan, this is emotional manipulation." Noah reached into his backpack. "I found something." He handed Ethan several documents. Richard's confident expression changed for the first time. Only slightly. But Ethan noticed. The billionaire slowly examined the papers. Corporate filings. Archived board memberships. Financial transfers. Offshore registrations. Each page raised another question. Richard forced a smile. Old records. Completely irrelevant. Noah shook his head. "They're connected." The lead attorney requested a short recess. Within minutes, Caldwell Industries' legal team began verifying the documents. The atmosphere shifted. Phones buzzed. Assistants rushed in and out. Nobody was smiling anymore. Richard quietly reached for his briefcase. Ethan stopped him. "Sit down." For the first time in 20 years, Richard looked nervous. An hour later the company's outside investigators returned. The documents appear authentic. Silence. The lead lawyer continued. "If these ownership structures are accurate, Titan Global would gain operational control within 18 months. Ethan frowned. "Without shareholder approval?" The lawyer nodded slowly. "It seems hidden in Appendix 47. Richard interrupted. "That's standard legal language." "No," another attorney answered firmly. "It isn't." The room erupted into arguments. Voices overlapped. Investors demanded explanations. Board members demanded delays. Richard stood abruptly. "This merger is still your best option." Ethan looked directly into his oldest business partner. "For whose future?" Richard didn't answer. Security entered moments later. Not for Noah. For Richard. Federal investigators had already been reviewing suspicious financial activity connected to several shell companies. The evidence Noah uncovered provided the missing link. Richard was escorted from the room while cameras outside unknowingly waited for a celebration that would never happen. The merger was cancelled. The stock market reacted violently. News channels declared Ethan's company in crisis. Shares dropped almost 20%. Experts predicted disaster. But Ethan wasn't thinking about the market. He was staring at Noah. Later that evening they sat alone inside the mansion library. The same room where everything had quietly begun. Ethan finally asked. "Why did you call me Daddy?" Noah looked down. "I shouldn't have. You must have had a reason." Tears filled the boy's eyes. "When Mom worked late, she always came home smiling." He paused. "She said there was one rich man who treated her like a human being." Ethan listened quietly. "When I was little, I'd ask what fathers were supposed to be like. Maria had never married. Noah's biological father had abandoned them before he was born. Mom always said a real father protects people, teaches them, believes in them." He swallowed hard. "Everything I imagined a father should be, looked like you." Ethan couldn't speak. "I didn't mean you were really my dad," Noah whispered. "I just couldn't think of another word." Tears rolled down Ethan's face. For years he believed fatherhood had been stolen from him forever. Yet somehow, without realizing it, he had already become the father figure a lonely little boy desperately needed. Maria entered quietly after returning from work. She immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry. He shouldn't have interrupted your meeting." Ethan gently shook his head. "He saved my company." Then he smiled. "He may have saved me too." Months passed. The investigation exposed one of the largest corporate fraud schemes in recent history. Richard Hawthorne accepted a plea agreement. Several international executives faced criminal charges. Employees who would have lost retirement savings kept their pensions. Thousands of jobs were preserved. Caldwell Industries recovered stronger than before. But the biggest change wasn't found on financial statements. It happened inside Ethan's home. The mansion slowly transformed. The dining table was no longer used by one person. Laughter returned. Maria no longer rushed away after cleaning. She was invited to stay for dinner. Noah filled empty rooms with questions, science projects, and dreams. One snowy December evening Ethan visited Claire's memorial garden. He placed fresh white roses beside her photograph. "I couldn't save our child," he whispered. "But maybe, you sent me another one who needed saving." The wind gently carried fallen petals across the garden. Months later Ethan surprised Maria and Noah with an invitation. Not to another dinner. To family court. Maria looked confused. "So, what is this?" Ethan smiled nervously. "I've built companies." He laughed softly. "But I've never built a family." He looked directly at Noah. "If both of you want. I'd like to officially become the father he already believes I am." Maria burst into tears. Noah couldn't even speak. He simply wrapped his arms around Ethan as tightly as he could. The courtroom months later wasn't filled with billion-dollar contracts. It held something far more valuable. Judge Eleanor Brooks smiled warmly as she signed one final document. "Congratulations, Noah Caldwell. Legally. Officially. Forever." The same pen that nearly destroyed Ethan's future months earlier now gave him the family he thought he had lost forever. Sometimes life changes because of billion-dollar decisions. Sometimes it changes because one frightened child chooses courage over fear. Noah didn't save Ethan because he wanted money. He saved him because love had already made them family long before any judge or legal document recognized it. And Ethan discovered the greatest investment of his life wasn't measured in stock prices or corporate mergers. It was measured in trust, kindness, and the courage to open his heart again. Because sometimes the people who change our lives don't arrive wearing expensive suits. Sometimes they arrive carrying a worn backpack, a stack of library papers, and one sentence brave enough to stop the world. If this story touched your heart, let us know how it made you feel in the comments. We'd also love to know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share this story with someone you care about, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unforgettable story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Don't say anything.